we're back. It's COMP228. It's week 8, lesson 8, part 3, Java programming. And where we last left off this morning, we talked about the UI stuff we're working on. And what I did was I kind of separated into a couple files. One is our driver class that all it does right now is it kind of drives our hello label. We set the text to hello. We use our setter, right? As an example, we created this thing. One of our students asked me to do this. And then in my example window, this is where we actually drive the entire example. So this is my class, right? So this is just to see it, right? So the first part of it is declaring the different variables that are going to be exposed. So one of them is the content pane, which gives us more control. Our hello label, our name label, and our name text field. One of the things that I was talking to the other professor in the other class, and he was saying that, just as an aside, what's a good reason not to use the UI, like this, window builder program? Is there a good reason not to use it? Anyone have an idea? Right? I would say, yeah, there's lots of good reasons not to use it. You have far more control when you code it yourself. Right? That's one. And the second thing is, sorry for the light just in my eyes. The second thing is when we code it ourselves, right? The code, the designer doesn't monkey with our code. I like to kind of talk about it and monkeying with our code, because notice how I went to the design view, and if it's compatible, I get this view here. If I drag and drop some stuff in here, it starts monkeying with my code, right? So be very careful what you do. Take it one step at a time, so that way, you don't have an undesirable effect, okay? And notice how the property inspector on the left here tells us one story, and then we might see something else that's different over here on the right. An example of this is what we did before. I have this big new label, but I want to make it a little bit longer. So I want to kind of move it to that's like a little bit longer, so I can put in kind of an example of what's going to go in here. When I click on these different items, I want a label that says what I've done, the event label, if this is what it is, more than anything else, not a hello label. Okay, let's see what I've done. I just changed this size of this hello label variable. Let's see how it's monkeyed with my code. So I'm going to go back to source code, and let's take a look and see if it's changed anything. So remember, my hello label, right, should be a private instance variable. So be careful when we do this kind of stuff so you understand what's going on. Okay, so here's my hello label right here, right? And if you notice, when I do that in Eclipse, it shows me all instances where I've called my hello label. One place is right here where I've modified the size now. So this is what it actually did. So it's pretty good. It just changed the size of my object. So if I run this thing again, if I go back to my program and I run this thing the way it is, then I get this window that pops up. And when I start typing, so I start typing like, blah, 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 and press enter, I said you pressed enter, right? So that's my event that I created, right? I pressed enter here. How did that work? Remember that I have my example window, and in my example window, I've defined this name text field handler, right? This is one way of doing it. There are maybe 3 ways I'd like to talk about today. This is one way where I use an external class. Here's my external class. Okay, I'm going to leave this external class here. I'm not going to monkey with this one, so I'm going to close this down eventually. But what I want to do is I want to make it so that it's an internal class, right? That's another way of doing it. So what's an internal class? You're going to hear this term, and especially if you do Android programming, you're going to do a lot of internal classes, right? All right, let's take a look. So what if I took this class, this public class name text field handler, implements action listener thing, I took this whole thing, right? And instead of name text field handler, right, we'll call it something else because it's going to clash with the one we already have. So I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go back into example window.java, and on the bottom here, right, just before the end of our class, and before my just after my add UI components, I'm going to add a space here and just press paste. Okay, cool. So I've got my name text field handler class. Here's my class within a class. Here's this class right here. Here's this class right here, right? And now I've got a reference to this, right? But now it's referring to the inner class. Let's change it so that what I need to do here is a couple things. I'm going to rename my class that's down here, where it says name text field handler implements action listener. I'm going to change this up to something else, right? Now it's it's a public class. What if I made this class private? So I'll say private class, and I'll make something like this. It'll be called, it's kind of weird if I did this, but let's say I make it so it's like name text field handler like this, right? And notice when I do that, I got to change this to leave this out a little bit. Notice when I do that, I've got a bit of a problem, right? If I'm trying to make it private like I normally do, I get this error here that says set method return type to void. I could do that, right? So here's my void. I could do this private name text field handler, but now let's see how I can deal with this thing. I've declared a class, and I'm just gonna kind of shade that out for a second, right? So that's now it's commented out. And if I go here where I declare my text field handler, I'm gonna kind of comment this whole area out too. So I'm gonna say, let's comment this whole area out by using these kind of comments, right? So that's out, right? And inside my constructor now, I want to do a new object of my my new class that I made. So let's see if I can do this. So I say this dot underscore name text field, right? This name text field. But hold on a second. Name text field handler doesn't show up. How come? Right? Name text field handler is right here. How come it does? I can't access it, even though it's a class. I made it private. What if I made this thing instead of private? Let's go protected. See if that works. Does that help me at all? I wanted to show you these things so you know, right? So let's try this again. So kind of go this on our name. Nothing. I don't have access to it. I want to declare a type, right? And normally we just declare it off the class name, right? Okay. Now let's go back to public. Okay, so public. Go back up here, and then do the same thing. Right, so now we're going to do the same thing. So this dot, and then we start typing this name text field. I still don't see it. In fact, I will never see it. How come? I'm using the this keyword, and it's referring first of all to my class, not the other class, right? If I was to make this, start using this text field class, like down here, this name text field handler with a lowercase n. Let's take this away for a second to rename this thing, right? So it's mentioned correctly. And the same thing goes with our constructor. It's got to be one of these, right? So void. Now notice that how it says one quick fix available. Change to a constructor. I want to do that. There we go, which kills our void. Okay, so I'm going to change it back. I want to use this name text field handler as our type. It's not name text field handler with a capital N, just to show you that it's different. It's name text field handler with a lowercase n. And I want to kind of create our type just down here. So I'm going to say, instead of the this keyword, I'm going to say name text field handler, right, with the lowercase n. And it's going to be, we're going to just call this thing handler, right, is equal to new name text field handler, and it's looking for a calling window thing. Well, guess what? I don't have to put my calling window anymore, right? I just have to put in the keyword this. In fact, I could do this and press semicolon, and it would work just fine because this is the calling window. But what if? Now this is an anonymous. This is an inner class, the class within a class. All right. What if instead of doing this, I take this, I don't make a call to anything, it's going to give me an error, and I change my constructor so that I don't even need this calling window thing here whatsoever. Let's get rid of this. So there's my empty constructor. Let's just kill the empty constructor altogether, and we'll also kill this calling window thing here. Let's call that as well. And then, hey, this is something. Can I just do one of these? So this dot get hello label set text. And the answer is no, because this doesn't work. This get hello label method belongs to this class, right? Not this one. So, but what if I went like this? I know my class name, right, is example window, right, which is up there. So, can I do example window dot get hello label? Is there a way of doing that? Is there a way of setting it up so that I don't have to pass a reference in here whatsoever? If I go back to my example on the PowerPoint slides, I just want to show you the difference, what they've done here. So here's my, I'll make this a little larger for you guys to see it. So here's my text fields, right? And then what I have is a bunch of text fields. I declared a handler. Here's my handler, text field handler, right? Is a new text field handler. And I've used my action listener with my handler. That's okay. Then in my handler, this is the trick. It's a private for sure. It's a private class that implements this. But then notice how I don't even have to use anything to get access to text field because it's inside of this class here, this private class is inside the other one. Well, I'm having trouble doing it right now. Can anyone recommend why I'm having trouble within my example? So here's my example, trying to access my get hello label, right? How about if I try and get my text field? Let's just get rid of this thing for a second. Remember, I can play around with this as much as I want because it doesn't really matter. And if this is public, I can make this private, just like it says in the book. It doesn't matter, right? And if I look up here, right, I'm declaring an object of named text field handler of handler. I still have access because even though it's private, it's inside the same document, so I have access to it, right? This is good. Yes. Well.
Make the static. Then you can access it without.
Is there static in here? How about over here? The get hello label, which is my getter, right? But that means, but I shouldn't even have to do a getter because I should have access to my fields, my private fields, whether they're final or not, right? These are final fields, right? But now the question is, do I need to make them final? Final just means constant, right? I don't need to make them static. Look, there's no static here. It's working nice, right? So how do I get to this, right? How do I do this same example? I want to do the same example here with this new text field handler. Here it is, just exactly the same example. But down in here, inside my class, right, I'm able to access my fields, this is my text field, right, without having to put this keyword if I don't want, and without an error. Let's try this out. So go back down here, and go back over here, and now let's access this field. So I know I have name label, so it's called name label, right? So if I go name label like this, right, I can access it, name label dot, and if you notice I can do set text, right? So I have access to name label, but if once I use the keyword this is the problem, watch, this dot underscore name label, why wouldn't this work in this particular context when I use this keyword? It means it belongs to this inner class, right? So I can't use the this keyword. So if I say something like this, if I go, this is my inner class, right? This is important to understand this, right? I have access to my fields, but I can't use the this keyword. I want to use the this keyword though, because you know it's important to me to understand what it means. But it's fine that inside my inner class, this is one of the issues that I have. Inside my inner class, as an example, I can't use the this keyword. So this is one other way of doing it, right? So I can say something like this. When I click on my, remember how I'm using this thing, right? First I declare, number one, step one, I declare an object of my new custom handler, right? That's number one. Two, I say that this underscore name text field, right? Dot add action listener, right? And I need an action listener, so I put in handler, right? Because that's my new handler. That's like a local variable that I have. So that's step two, right? Now I'm listening for any events that happen on my name text field, which is in all cases the enter event, right? Go back down here. So when I press enter, I want my label, my hello label, this dot underscore hello label. So hello label by itself. Hello label dot set text to, you know, I'll say something like name text field or enter press. We'll say enter press, just like we did before. Okay, and I'll save that. So this little function right here. My action listener, my inner class, as an example, right? It has to implement this name text field handler, implements this action listener, and then I can do this, right? Let's see how this works now. I'm not calling this external class. Look at all the extra, look at all the extra work that I had to do there. I'm not calling this one. I had to pass a reference to this which is the calling window reference. I have to pass it into the constructor. I even have to have a constructor, right? And then when I can do that, I can call the hello label. I can use the getter on the hello label to set text and all that kind of stuff, right? So it's much more complex if I have an external class than if I have an internal class. It's cleaner. I have a lot more control in this case, right? But it's more complex. So let's close this one down. And let's run this thing and see if it does the same thing. So now I'm kind of doing in here, and I press enter, and then I enter pressed. Right, so I'm still getting that same event happening. This is good. Okay, so that's the second way. So first way, external class. Second way, internal class. Third way, anyone have a suggestion for a third way? How about Tyler in the back? Any suggestions? I want to make a third way. I don't want to make a inner class. Actually, there's 4 ways to do it, right? There's 4 different ways to do this. Any way I would do this differently? If I want to make another kind of event listener, but I don't want to use an inner class. How about this? How about making my class, the class itself, this example window extends JFrame, implement action listener, because all this is an interface, right? Let's try that way. So I'm going to get rid of this one this way. So I get rid of these. I mean, what I'll do is I'll actually comment it out, right? So this is the inner class method. Inner class way of doing things. Way of doing things. Just so that way you can see that. I'm going to just kind of with this program here where I go blah, 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 comment this piece out, right? So put this all in stasis. You can see this one here. So it's still there, right? But I'm not going to use this method. I want to implement action listener. I want to take this implements action listener and put it into my code. So I'm going to copy it, right? I'm going to go up to the top of my class, and this is inheritance and interfaces and polymorphism here. I'm using it all, right? The only thing I don't have in here is arrays. Then we have a whole example, right? Then I'll kind of paste it in there, right? This is cool, and I'll save. And am I good? No. Why I get this error? Because I haven't implemented my method, and it says. This is cool from Eclipse, eh? Add unimplemented methods. Yeah, click. And now way down here somewhere, it's going to add up my override. And there's my little override. But look what it shows me. It's a public action performed method that's part of my class now. Now this, I'm sorry to tell you, I prefer. Why? Because it's an inner method, right? I'm implementing the action perform interface. And this is the third way of doing it. There's actually one more way, which I'm not going to go over today. And I'm going to look at it and do something like this, the same way. I can go this dot underscore hello label. See, I can access it now just like I like to, right? Dot set text. It's nice and easy. And then set the text to enter pressed. So there's no class at all. There's just this implemented interface that I want to use. This is a great example of an interface that forces us to create this method signature, right? Action performed, and action performed is it's an inherited thing. We inherit this way of doing things where we can listen for something happening, and then put some stuff in there. Remember, this action event type is listening for an event. This is actually an event. And now that I have access to this local variable event, I can actually go in here and go something like this: event dot, get source, right? Not get source. So I want to know the source of my event, right? And I want to output this source to the console. Let's do that. So I'm going to say system dot out. This is very important, guys, because I want you to understand this methodology here. There's 3 ways we've done this thing, and this probably, for me, it's the preferred way. You might have to prefer the external document, the external class type, which is, again, lots of control, right? And I can add in additional features to that particular class that I have less control here, okay? But here's the good thing. So I want to print out this event get source. So this event source, all right? So whenever I have an event, something happens, right? Let's see what happens. So I'm going to kind of play this one, and then it says, hey, errors exist. How do I fix these errors? Where are these errors? So I'm going to kind of go up to where the error exists. There it is. And it says here that I don't need this anymore, right? I don't, because I don't need a name text field handler. Let's just get rid of this. Even let's just get rid of this. Let's just kind of comment this piece out. This is for the second way of doing things, right? This is the first way of doing things, right? This is the external class. External class. Right? This way down here is the internal class. Inner class is what it's called. Named inner class, right? And the third way down here is the I'm implementing implementing the actual interface, right? Okay, let's run this now. So I'm gonna save everything and then run this. And then when I do that, I get the thing. When I press enter, not only do I get this, well, let's see, hold on a second. How come? What the? What happened? Right? I said hello label set text, right? What happened? Let's go back down here and see what happened, right? Did it even go here? How about that? With them apples? Well, no, because I still need this step, right? This name text field action listener, I need to still do that. I still need to register an action listener, right? But I can't register it on this one. This is a class that doesn't exist. I can't register on this one. This is I can't. This class doesn't exist. This handler doesn't exist. So how do I register it? I still need to register my handler. Yeah. Yes. So I say this dot underscore. Very good. Name text field, right? Dot add action listener. I always need this step, right? And instead of passing in another value, I pass in the value of this. When I pass in this, now I've registered my my event handler. So this is actually register event handler. That's what it does. Right? Good. Okay, so I'm using this. Now again, think about this. I only have one event handler method for all of my events right now. Okay? I don't have separate ones. I could make other classes, another inner classes that only handle one event or one event type that I want, or I can make one big one, which I'm going to do right now, that handles it all. All right? Positive and negative. Good and bad for doing this thing. Okay, let's take a look. Less code duplication this way though. Okay, let's run this thing and see if it works. So go in here, blah, 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 press enter, and I get two things. I get my enter press, and down here on the bottom it says java.swing.jtext field 9935.131.29. Layout is equal to java swing plaf.basic, basic text UI updater, and da 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 da. All the properties for this bloody thing on and on and on and on and freaking on. Like we're talking like a long line of stuff. One thing though you notice is that the front, right? This javax, the swing, the jtext field, there is a property. This is a big long line of stuff, of properties. It tells us our alignment and our border and all this other stuff. But somewhere along in here, it also tells us what the text field is that we've named that's done that. So if you actually look at this thing, you can actually see that what this text field is called, right? Okay. So I want to kind of print that out. I want to say whatever the text field is, right? So I'm going to go back down to this you know, this little method here, this method that's been overridden, right? It's the action perform method that's part of my class now because I've included it because of my interface, right? I can go in here and I want to specify, you know, what my source is and print out the source. Let's take a look at our code here online to show that. So event.getSource, if the event.getSource is equal to the text field, I'm actually testing it to see what object is clicking on it, then I can do something with the text field, right? Say that the text, the actual text field was pressed. And that's what I want to do, right? Because I'm going to have more than one event that's going to go on here in my event lifecycle, right? So I can do one of these. I can say, how about if I do this? You know, if I say if event.getSource, right, is equal to, and again, it's this dot underscore hello label, right? If it's equal to this, then right, I'm going to say something like this. I'm going to say, well, first I'm going to do this, right? I'm going to say that, you know, set text, enter press. But what about if I do, I'm going to hello label if I click on if the source is my hello label is wrong, I meant to say if it's my text field, name text field. There it is. But then I want to change my hello label to say text field, enter pressed, name text field, name text field. I don't know if it'll fit. Enter pressed. Okay. It's kind of put a little dash. If it doesn't fit, we'll modify it to make it fit. Okay, good. Now let's press play. And when I do that, if I press enter, it says name text field enter pressed, right? So it detects what the field was that kind of was pressed. Well, this is a great way of beginning if I want to add other things in here. Like let's say, for example, I want to click on my button. And when I click on my button, I want it to do something, right? So I'm going to go back to my design view. This is where it's going to monkey with my code, right? And I want to put a button down here. So when I press a button, like the update button or something like that, not just the enter button. When I press a button, then this text label gets changed too. All right, so let's try that out. So I'm going to go into components. Let me just close layouts and containers for a second. I'm going to go into components and find a J button. There's my J button, right? I'm going to drag and drop my J button by clicking on it once and then putting it where I want. Take a look how it gives me the exact coordinates that I want. I want to kind of line it up here. If you see these smart guides that come up on the screen, I can line it up so that it lines up with my my objects, right? So here's my new button. That's pretty good. And then let's put in, we'll make this, the goodbye button, right? So goodbye button. So let's rename this, underscore. I know it's going to be a private, so I'm going to say underscore goodbye button, sure. And then inside the middle of this new button, instead of the text being new button, we'll make it so that'll say, well, let's call it click me. Come on, click me, right? Click me. When I click the button, it's going to say goodbye, right? Let's go back to the code and see how we mess things up. Right, so here I've got my J labels and my text fields, and then somewhere in here, my add UI components, I probably added in a button, right? So let's take a look at that. So here's my add UI components. Oh man, it did the same thing to me. There's my goodbye button. I've got the right coding in there, but I want to get rid of this J button thing. So I'm going to take this whole thing out of here, copy it, go back all the way to the top because I want to access this thing, make it private, and put it in, right? And then kind of do one of those, right? So goodbye button. I kind of go back down to my add UI components. This is the stuff I have to do. And then, of course, I don't have to do this anymore. I just have to do one of these where I say this dot goodbye button, and I can say this dot set bounds, and then this dot get content, which we'll call content pane. So it's kind of in the same vein. All right, cool. I want to register an event handler, right, for my button, and I want to do that inside my my constructor method, right? What do I do to add an event listener and to my button? Fahim, what do I do? How do I add an event listener to my button? Here's the example of how I added it to my text field. What do I do with my button? Is it any different? Same thing? Okay, let's try this up. So I'll say this dot underscore my button, which is the goodbye button. There it is. Dot add action listener, and I'm going to pass in this. And like you said, it's good. But now I gotta check to see what, when my text field, my name text field is pressed, it does one thing. When my goodbye button is clicked, it's got to do something else. Let's go back down to this thing, and I got to do another if statement. Now, should I do an else if, or should I just do an if? F event dot get source. Get source is exactly equal to this dot underscore, and again the name of the button, which is goodbye button. Then, right? Then what I want to do is I want to say this dot underscore hello label dot set text is equal to the hello label. It's going to be goodbye button. So goodbye button clicked. Right? What's going to say? My goodbye button clicked. I could say goodbye. Yes.
What would this be confused with this you're talking about?
This or this or this. You're confused because when I say this, what am I referring to? The whole class. It's a reference to the class itself, the object, right? Before it's an instance, right? So when I use the keyword this, what I'm really passing is my reference to my entire class, right? So I'm saying when I add an action listener, use my class as the container for my action listener. And in fact, because my class implements action listener, it searches through my class to see that there's an action perform method, which there is, and then it goes here for doing this without having a named method. This is just a public void action perform method. There's one other way to do this, by creating an anonymous inner class of type action event class, or event listener. This action listener class, an anonymous inner class. All right, which is kind of weird too. So there's four methods the way to do this thing. The first method, external class, which might work okay for you because I want to show you that first. The second way is to do an inner class, where you're calling the inner class. The third way is to do this way, which you're implementing an interface. And the fourth way I'm going to tell you about it is an anonymous inner class, where I use the new keyword, new, right? And then I use the new action listener. And when I use new action listener, what it does is it creates a anonymous inner class. An example of that is if I did that, if I went to here somewhere, and if I went something like this, new action listener, anonymous inner class, right? And if I was to do that, notice how it says, right, insert, semicolon to complete the statement, right? So I can do that. And so what I'm really saying is I want to create this new anonymous inner class. How do I do this thing? And there's some actually really good examples. That's what I would be doing. I would do this, and it would create this action perform method inside of an anonymous inner class, which for most people is mind-boggling. They don't understand. But for Android programmers, we use anonymous inner classes all the time, right? Not the only way to do things, but definitely something we could do. So those are the four ways of doing things. Three main ways. The fourth way is a little bit more advanced. Okay, let's do this again. So now I've got my, let's check this to see if it works. So I'm gonna go play, and then when I play, I want to go here and I want to click the button. And then it says my goodbye button was clicked. Right? Go here and press enter. My name text field was enter was pressed. Click it again. My goodbye button was clicked. Right? So I'm responding now to events, which is a good thing. I actually have a UI. All right? So I've got an input box. How about if I click on this thing? Can I do anything with my label to make sure that it does something? Can my label react to clicks or enters? Let's see. We'll do the same thing. We'll kind of register our event listener, right? So here we want to put it in here, right? So I want to say something like this: this dot underscore hello label dot add action listener, right? Refer to this body of my class where my method exists. And then it says, oh, ancestor listener. I love it. Add ancestor listener. Add action listener. Huh? Add action. How come it doesn't give it to me? Because it doesn't exist on a label. You can't click on a label. I could use the mouse. The mouse could help me do that, right? If I hover the mouse over a label, I can tell the position. When I hover in and out of an object, that I could do. But I can't do an add action listener to a label. All right. Well, now that I've got that, I've got the ability to add buttons, right? Really, I've got the ability to build a UI, right? And this is a great segue into our new assignment, which is assignment number 4, which I've already populated up on eCentennial. So I've given you 2 assignments today. I've given you the little makeup assignment for people who are bad at arrays, which is most of you. And then, then there's the other assignment, which is the actual assignment for today. Let's just take a look. I was trying to say it in a nice way, but there's just no way of saying it nicely. Let's go back to, and I really, please, forgive me. I'm not trying to make fun of anybody. I'm just saying that, people have trouble, right, with arrays. And you know what? Maybe it's also I also have to look at myself, and you know, we're the administration, we're the people that are teaching you, right? So if you don't understand a raise and I'm showing you a raise, you still won't get it, whose problem is it? Is it mine or is it yours? So you see you know, whenever, I always like to say this, whenever you point a finger at somebody, you know, you get a bunch of fingers pointing back at you, right? So, you know, it's all, you know, we're all in this together, guys and girls. All right, let's go into this UI application, GUI application, which is this fourth assignment that I'm going to give you. Let's take a look and see what this looks like. Man, I'm giving assignments out today fast and furious. I did it in a game programming. I'm going to make Selena crazy. She's in all my classes, right? Same thing with Fahim, right? You're going to have all this craziness going on. Okay, so here's another one. It's called, I shouldn't say bonus. Ooh, what a mistake that is. All right, let's just save this one. I'll upload this one again. Here's one thing it says. It's assignment 4, GUI application. It's due week 10 now, so we're sitting at week 8. This is a couple weeks out. By Friday, November 20th at midnight, it's worth 10%. What is this thing? It's develop a GUI application that allows a Centennial College student to calculate his or her GPA, given the current GPA, your current GPA, and the total number of credit hours earned. Okay. The student should be allowed to enter as many courses as he or she wants, and the program must calculate and display the GPA for the student. When I say the GPA for the student, that means like the future GPA. If you had this, whatever your average would be, it calculates your future GPA based on your current GPA and the courses that you have. An example of that would be this. Here's my example of a screenshot. Your current GPA is 2.87, right? And you're going to take these courses and get these marks. You calculate, and now it's going to calculate your new GPA. This is an example sample interface.
So you lose marks for making exactly.
You won't lose marks, but it's pretty ugly, right? Now, questions for you guys would be like this. Remember what I said is in the beginning. I'm going to go back up here for a second. Let's read this thing. So the student should be allowed to enter as many courses as he or she wants. Uh-oh. What does it mean? It means arrays. That's what it means, people. Arrays of objects that I'm going to put on the screen, because it's going to be dynamic. When I hit this little this box and I go from number of courses 4 to 5, it's going to add more courses on here, more rows. And you know something else, what's going to happen is the window, wow, we're going to work out the window, eh? What if I add like 20, 30, 40? How am I going to scroll down on the window? Is there going to be a scroll bar? These are all things we got to explore over this day and next day, right? So you guys can get it all done. Okay, so how do we do this? And what are these pull down things? These you know, combo boxes is what they are, right? These are combo boxes or list boxes, if you will, right? How do they work? And if I pull this down, how do I create a bunch of different objects here? Let's try and tackle this over the next hour. I want to show you how to create these dynamically generated objects, right? Okay, let's go back into the meat and bones of this thing so we understand it all. So how to calculate the GPA, right? For each course, compute the number of credits multiplied by the grade point earned in that course, right? This result is known as quality points. So, for example, I have COMP228. In this example, I have 4 credit hours, and then my grade point is B+. If I look at the conversion scale, B+ means that it's a 3.5. So I take 4 hours times 3.5. If that was the B+ I would get. And then that's my quality points. All right, so to calculate GPA, then, take the total number of quality points for the courses is divided by the total number of credits for those courses. So if I get, you know, again, whatever the number is, 4 times 3.5, so 12 something or 13 something, and then divided by the total number of credits, which is 4, then I'm going to get 3.5 is my GPA in this particular case, because I only have one course. Now, there's many ways to do this, by the way. GPA is also an average, right? So this is getting a bunch of averages. Follow this method, please. All right. To calculate the GPA, the total number of quality points, like I said, is divided by the total number of credits for those courses. The grade points are in the range 0 to 4.5, as shown below, right? For example, if you took COMP228, which is 4 credit hours, and received a B, your GPA for that semester would be 4 times 3 points equals 12 quality points. 12 quality points divided by 4 credit hours total is equal to a 3.000 GPA. Grade point average, which is like getting back the exact thing you put into it, right? Well, yeah, because there's only one course. But if I add a bunch of courses together, you're going to see that the quality points divided by the total number of credits is going to be different. Because sometimes you get less credits. Like some courses only have 3 credits. Some courses have 4 credits. Right now you're seeing every course that has 4 credits, but there's a course we have, COMP228, that only has 3 credit hours, right? So if that's true, then you get less quality points, no matter how, if your GPA is higher, your actual grade is higher in that course, but there's less hours, it's lower, it's weighted lower than a 4-hour course. And that's where that calculation comes into play. Okay, so that's what you're going to build. You're going to build this UI, and it's for assignment number 4, right? Okay, submitting your work. I want you to individual zip files of your project files uploaded to Dropbox, and a link to your GitHub repository is what I want. Those 2 things, right? It's worth 10% of your final grade. It's 24 points to do this thing, and it's out by Friday, November 20th. You got lots of time to take care of this. How do I, 2 things I need to find out for today is, and before we'll take a short break soon to figure it out, but if I was going to create this interface, right, here's my credit hours earned. That looks to me like there's a label. Let's look at this thing. Here's the design. There's a text box of some kind here. There's a current GPA, right? That's what's in here as well. There's my number of courses. This is the variable here. When I click this number, it generates all this table here. That's what it does. How do I generate this table from pulling down this number? I'm generating something in real time. When I pull this down, there's an event listener that fires, right? It triggers, and inside my little event loop, right, I generate stuff. I add stuff onto my content pane. That's what I'm really doing in real time. Okay. Now, what if I move this from 4 to 3? So I made a change. Right? I look at the number. If the last number was greater than this number, then I remove stuff and I put it and I add things back. Right? That's what I have to do. I have to be flexible enough so when I change this number, it changes what I'm seeing here. It removes or adds components. This is the trick. Some people I've seen in the past with this kind of thing, they change this number to 5 or 6 or 7, then they change it back down to 2, but the numbers are still 7. So they don't remove anything. It has to. When you choose this number of courses, it adds or removes. And if I go beyond this little window here, it gives me a little scroll bar or it expands the window, one of the 2. It's got to be flexible enough so I can scroll down and look at all my courses. Yep.
There it says course code. So look at the same course code. Okay.
It doesn't matter. It's not. I'm not asking for that. I'm not asking you to link to a database, right? And the future iterations of the same code, I would ask you to check to see if these course codes are unique. Right? But for now, I don't care. This is just figura. Right? It's just all it is a little bit of like a prop. This is the most important stuff right here. Right? If I choose my grade point, it should show my grade point average as a B 75, 79. But on the back end, it should do this conversion. Right? It should do this conversion on the back end. So if I choose a B plus, which is 75, 79%, it's going to, in the back end, it means 3.5. How do I do that? How do I convert this to 3.5? So when I pull down the selection, then it does something. So we're going to deal with some of these items right now. Okay, one thing to deal with is this. Let's do the first piece. The first piece is I enter a value, right? Like for example, 15 or 2.87. How do I get that value out again? We just had enter. Right now, that's all we've done. But we haven't done anything else. Let's go back to our code here and try that out. And I'm going to kind of leave this up for a second while we do that. I'm going to go back here, and we go back to our example, right? So what I want to do here in my design view is when I put a value in here, like name, let's type a name, and let's get a string back. That's the first thing, right? So when I click, instead of click me, we're going to say submit, right, or whatever. Actually, we don't have to do that. If I press enter, how about this? Just keeping it easy. If I press enter here, then I want this, whatever I type in here to be up here. How do I do that? That's the first piece. So let's try this out and see what happens. Can we suggest anything in our event listener here? So if the source is equal to the name text field, I'm pressing enter. I know I'm pressing enter. What do I want to set the text field to? How do I get the value of my name text field out? Anybody? Come on, Ravina, you're too quiet. I want to hear from you now too. get text. Okay, let's try this out. So I'm going to say, I'll say that this dot underscore name text field dot get text, right? It's got to go somewhere. This returns something, right? This piece here, and I can put. How about this? What if I do it in one line? What if I take this whole thing out here? It's returning a string, a text, and I put it in here. Can I do that? Like this? One line, right? I'm taking the output from the name text field. I'm trying to make it so it's slick and neat, eh? And I'm putting it inside the input, the set text. I'm getting the text from this one, and I'm putting it inside this one in one line, right? Does that make any sense to you? All right, let's see if that works. So I'm going to kind of go play, and then inside here I'm going to say hello and press enter. Hello, right? Let's type something else. I'm going to say, you know, 5, right? Or how about blah 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 blah. Right? So it does that work. It does work like that. So I get text. Okay, but that means. And this is the same, by the way, for Android, iOS devices, any kind of GUI you ever build that I've ever built. Anything you get from a GUI text box is a type. Anything you get from them is a type what? String. Anytime you get input from a text box, it's a string. When I get input from a user, what do I need to do? If I'm listening for a number, what do I need to do? I need to convert it, but I have to do one more thing to protect myself. I can do that too, but I need to use exception handling. If I don't do exception handling, I'm gonna error out, because if I'm listening for an integer and the person's entering a string, like a letter instead of a number, I'm in trouble. It doesn't matter what's the console or if I do it here in the UI. It's a problem, right? How to mitigate that? How do I prevent that so much in a UI, right? I use pull downs. I use values that I can dial up and dial down where they can't put in their own value. I can limit what they put into the text field, right? So if I'm looking for a number, I can look at some kind of dial up or dial down, a pull down that I can pull the number down as opposed to whatever number they want, right? It's a little bit more challenging from a GPA perspective. How would I make a GPA average with a point that I can pull up and put down? It's not impossible, right? It's not impossible at all, right? I can use a kind of a pull down for one number, a dot, a label that shows a dot, and then the next two numbers, I can put some pull downs there too. So I can actually pull down all the numbers, so I have complete control. They can only pull down actual numbers, so I don't have to use exception handling. That'll prevent the user from putting any other monkey number in there, right? To mess me up, right? iOS has a really cool spinner control that we can use. Not sure we have that kind of spinner control here in this old swing, right? They didn't think about these things. But these are the controls we have that we're going to start exploring for today after the break. We have a combo box. We're going to look at what those are. It says a component that combines a button or an editable field with a drop-down list. The user can select a value from the drop-down list, which appears at the user's request. If you make the combo box editable, then the combo box includes an editable field into which the user can type a value. Okay, that's interesting. That's one. I have a, so combo box is one. Here's a spinner. Hey, a lightweight component that allows the user, lets the user select a number or an object value from an ordered sequence. Yeah, baby, I want that. I want a spinner. Yeah. Why don't we add that spinner in there anyway? Let's just add that spinner and see what happens. I'm going to add it in here in the bottom of my, I'm going to click this once and go in here and just add it in and see what it looks like. So it looks like this, right? That's kind of cool. So I can add in my GPA like this. I can kind of put in a value here. It's kind of cheating though, eh? And then, you know, I kind of put in like, you know, a 0 to a 4. I can accept 0 to a 4 in here. And I can set the values of my spinner. And I can kind of, you know, add another spinner in here. I can put spinner, put the spinner next to that one. And then I can put another spinner in here, put that next to that one, right? And then, you know, put a dot and move these spinners, kind of select both these spinners out and move them aside a little bit. And put a label in here with a dot, 3.50, whatever, my GPA, right? And that could be kind of an idea of how I put my GPA together by limiting the user input, right? But that would be cheating, right? We can't allow that. So I'm going to kind of remove those things, right? But that definitely would limit. That's definitely a solution. Sometimes it's pretty cool where you can spin up and spin down a value for my GPA as opposed to enter whatever I want. The user should be able to enter in a value, and then you should be able to, you know, tell the user, hey, user, you entered the wrong value. I'm looking for an integer or a float or whatever, right?
So the spinner can't be like a decimal number.
Sure can.
Something
But-
along these lines.
Well, let's see, but that means that I would be like one big list of decimal numbers from 0 to 4.5, right? So 0, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, all the way to,
Oh, that's okay.
yeah, it's long, it's big, it's huge, massive. No, please don't do that. So that would be a problem, right? And then it would you kind of make it sit at an average, right? Like you probably want to set your values so that they're kind of sitting on an average, like something on an average, like a C average or something like that you can kind of dial up and dial down in the middle somewhere, right? Because if you look at this example, the middle is probably around a C, right? That's where kind of it kind of hits in the middle, right? So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers above and 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers below, right? So C plus would probably where you want to sit around. So this 2.5 would show up in the spinner control as a default. And then you can spin up or spin down, and it would be the same amount of clicks to get there, right? So that's one way of doing it. I'm just kind of brainstorming here with you. But how do I convert this number that I put in here into an actual integer value, right? So remember we have those integer conversion rules, which is really important for us to try and do. So let's go back into Eclipse for a second, right? And I want to kind of get this text value, even though it says enter name. Let's change this from, let's add another value. So we're going to add another control. I'm going to pull this click me somewhere down here, so we don't monkey with our control too much. And I want to put another value that will enter the age. Okay, so another couple labels. Let's try this out. So practice for us, right? So I'm going to click label. I'll pull it over here, right? New label. I'm going to line it up so it's lined up nicely, right? There's one label. I'm not going to name it yet. I'm going to pull on another text box. So here's my text field. There we go. And I'll pull this in here like this. And hey, where's my how come? Right? Where's my, oh, there it is. It's my text field. It's the monkeying around form, right? So there we go. I'm going to lay this out now. And I'm going to kind of line it up so that it lines up with my field here. And you know, kind of line this up so that it's kind of lined up with the bottom with my smart guides. A little bit like this, so it kind of lines up nice. Come on, Tom. It's good. There we go. So now this name label, I'm going to rename. So it's going to, instead of label, it's going to be called age label, lowercase age label with an underscore, right? And we're going to make this, you know, enter age as the text. I'm going to make this a little bigger because I need more room for my label to print the text out. There we go. Enter age. This looks a little bit off. And this looks a little bit short. So I'm going to make this bigger. There we go. So it's kind of lined up here. And then this one would be the age text field, right? So underscore age text field. I've added a couple more into my controls, my name, and my age. And then whenever I press enter, I want to see a number calculate, you know, subtract and calculate from somewhere else, right? We'll see. We'll do that up here, right? This is our kind of our test little box that we're learning with, right? Okay, so I'm going to save. And I'm going to go back to my source and let's see how we monkeyed around, right? Because that's what this thing does. Why it's sometimes a lot easier. Hey, look what it did. It added this J text field. That's cool. And it made it age text field. That's great. But it didn't add in my labels, right? My label is gone. It's down here, right? This age label. I'm going to take this age label and copy it. I'm going to go up here to the top where we have all this stuff. And, you know, since we're talking, we'll just put this in here like this and press private and paste, right? And then we have our age label that's in an instance variable. Now we can access down here instead of doing declaring it for the first time. Say this dot age label. We'll say this dot and this dot. And might as well do all the other ones I missed, like all these ones. This dot. And might as well copy and how about copy and paste this dot? Huh? Yeah. And I know some of you are like, you don't need that. I don't understand why he's putting it in because he doesn't need it. You don't need this thing. And why is he putting the underscore in there? Just do it. All right? Just do it. Okay, cool. So, and I'll explain why. Okay, so I've got all this stuff here, and I've got my this stuff over here. I need another event listener and to tie into my event handler. And just for this, I've kind of put this up for a bit of time. I'm going to take this away because you don't need to see this anymore. You've kind of understood that there's 3 different ways of doing it that I've shown you, and there's another way that I didn't show you, the anonymous interclass way, which is outlined in your book, right? Let's just make up some space over here, so we'll clean up my class, and then I'll upload it to GitHub at the break. Okay, cool. So I've got this going on right here. Messed around with this thing. Got my J label and J text field, and I got to add in. I got to register the event handlers for my event handler for my listeners, right? Event handler for action listeners. Action listeners. These are all my action listeners. I'm handling with one big event, right? So I'm going to say like this dot underscore name text field or age text field. My age text field that add action listener. There it is. I'm going to pass in this. That's kind of in there. That's my add action listener, right? I'm going to go back down to this, and now I need to do another if statement, right? So let's just copy and paste. I'm going to copy this one and paste it underneath here. It's in order. Another way of doing things. And now I'm listening for this dot underscore age text field. And it's age text field, then what do I want to do? I want to put in my hello label. I want to calculate something, right? So let's say we want to know how much younger you are than I am, right? So I want you to make a calculation. So 46, that's me, right? Minus your age, right? And that's what's going to pop up in the text label here, the hello label. Later on YouTube, they're going to say, see, back then you were 46. Now. All right, let's go back, right? So I want to do that. I want to say something like this. Well, I'm going to make a local variable that I'm going to declare as an integer. So I'm going to say int age, or age difference, we'll say. Difference for difference. There we go. Okay, age difference, right? That's what it is. I'm going to make that, I'm going to declare it as a variable. And what I want to do is I want to calculate the age difference being whatever I have from my age text field, right? Minus, or my age difference minus my age text field. Hopefully I'm older than all of you, otherwise I'll get a negative value, right? I'll say take the age difference, which is equal to, I'll just do it in one line, equals to 46 minus, right? This dot underscore age text field dot get text, right? So get text, there it is, right? But I need to do a conversion, right? Notice how it says there's an error, and it says the operator minus is undefined for the argument type int string. There isn't. I can override this thing. By the way, there is ways of overriding my my operators, my minus and my pluses, so that I can create my own minus and plus operator for my particular class, believe it or not, right? So I can say when I use a minus with an integer and a string, it does this. I can override that method, but I don't need to do that right here. What I want to do is I want to say I want to convert this into an integer. How do I do that? What's the thing that I can use? Remember? Sorry? So I'm using the integer object, integer dot, and if I go parse int, right, I'm going to convert the string, that's what it's looking for, this whole string right here, take this whole thing and put it inside here, right, and then get rid of that S. Get rid of the S, Tom. There we go. And now it's going to convert it, right? So if I say 46, and if my age is 20, I should get 26, right? So now when I do that, I say, well, this dot hello label dot set text. Hey, can I set text as just an integer? So I can put the age difference in here. Can I go like age difference? Can I do that? I'm setting up an integer, right? Well, it says no, right? It says quick fix, change to the set tooltip text, change type of set difference to string, or I can convert it back to string. How do I convert it to string? I could do that. What's the other way of doing it? Is there a way of converting a number to a string in any other way? No, the other way. Integer dot to string, and then an integer, which is age difference, right? Age difference. So I could do that. Yeah, that's the way. That's the nice way of doing it. If I take this whole thing out here, copy it, and we'll get rid of the semicolon in a second and put it in here like this, then that would work without using the concatenation. That's a trick. We're not supposed to do tricks, Ravina. Okay? No tricks. No more tricks. Only for games. After that, it's not normal. Okay, so that's. But you're right. You could do it that way. That's a very valid way of doing things. Where you add it's a trick to use you're converting it to string. When you concatenate it with a string, it converts to a string. But for now, this is the acceptable way of doing things. We convert it to string, and this pipes out a different error when we try doing this. Right? Okay, let's try this out. Run it, and I say, here's my name. Hello. Right? And my age, if I put my age in here, and if I put 46, I should get 0, right? And if I put in some other value like 89, I get a minus number, thank God. And if I put in a 40, I'm going to get 6. So it does all the calculations for me. What if, and this is where it comes crazy, what if I put an A, right? Well, I get an error. Luckily, what it didn't do, take a look what it didn't do to me. It didn't crash my code, but it caused this big ass error. Take a look at this thing, man. This is massive. It's taking up all my screen, right? Let's go back to this thing. Look, it didn't crash my code here. But if I put another one, if I go 3, it continues to run. But look, it left before there. Let's go into my 43. Let's go into 29. 29. All right, and press enter. 17. What if I put like an A5? Boom, I get like a big error, right? Because I can't type in a non-integer. So I need to be able to account for that, and we do that with exception handling, which we talked about before. So I'm going to kind of close this off. And whenever I get input, what I want to do is I want to do exception handling. Where would I do it? Here? Would I do it here? Come on, Ravina. I want you to participate. She's bored. I'm bored already. Right? Okay, so if I put a try catch here, what I'm saying is I'm trying to convert my integer parse to something else, right? If I put it up here, right? If I put it up here to this listener, right, to the age text field, add action listener, that's not going to help me, right? It's not going to help me at all. I need to parse it. I need to do a this over here. The try catch?
These 2 lines.
This just these ones? All right.
These 2.
How about this whole thing? Can we put this whole thing in there?
Because we are just using integers in the last.
What if I have more than one?
Yeah.
Yeah, then we can do it.
What if I have 10? Do I want to do try catch 10 times? I could, if I want to be specific messages out for each of my objects, right? But if I just want to generically catch an object, say invalid entry, please try again, or something like that, and then clear it up, I can do that, right? Let's try this out. So I'll say I'll put any kind of entry. We'll just do what Ravina says inside this little try catch block. We'll do the 2 ways. So I'm going to kind of make some space, and I'll put a try. If I type try and press Control space, gives me options like a try finally and a try catch. Gives me some examples down here of what it would come up with. Like this is a code snippet that you can add into Eclipse. Press Enter, gives me the try catch block. This is a generic try catch block, right? I'm going to take this whole piece right here, cut it, and put it inside my try, right? Which basically tries to convert and get text and everything else. Otherwise, I get an exception. When I catch, what I want to say in here is 2 things, right? I want to do in my label, which is kind of like my flash label that I'm using right now, I want to put in something else. This dot underscore hello label, right? Dot set text. I want to say something like, I'm using my label as a little thing. Set text, something like, hey, that was just wrong, right? Just wrong. There it is. So that was just wrong. So if I put some other thing in there, it's going to say, hey, that was just wrong. I want to do one other thing. Is there a way I've got some entry in there. Is there a way of me highlighting everything that's inside of my age? So I have to type it in again. It's kind of a trick we do, right? So I kind of do this, and then I want to highlight that once. I want to say this dot underscore age text field dot. I want to see if there's anything that does that. Set tooltip, add a component. I could do the set. How about select? I want to kind of do a select. Select all. There it is. Select all. Select all. Right? So what am I doing when I select all? I select everything that's in that field. So when I type in there again, it erases. Right? So I want to kind of do a select all. And then I want to kind of run it again. So I'm going to go back to my program and try this out. And then I kind of put in my name. Da-da-da. Hey, wait a minute. There. And then I enter my age. And then I type in A. Hey, that was just wrong. And look what's happened. It highlighted what I've got here. So I type in another value, it overwrites that value. It's kind of a clinky way of doing it. So I'm going to type in 8A, blah, blah, enter. Highlights that whole thing, so that's wrong. Doesn't allow me to make that entry, right? I could also highlight the background of my field to make it red or green or add validation like we normally see in C#, right? But I kind of added some basic validation so it doesn't allow me to enter just any number and it won't crash my code. Right? And listening for an integer. If I don't get an integer, it's going to give me this thing that says, hey, it's wrong, right? And I can say error. And sometimes what I do is when I program a UI, this is just basic UI programming techniques, I leave spaces, a space between these two areas here, right? Or sometimes what I do is inside the value itself, I change the text. I actually output text inside here, and I highlight it, that's red. Or I make the whole box red, which is totally fine. You can do that too, right? Let's check out some of these ways of doing that. So, okay, we've highlighted the text. That's one thing we can do. So if I go kind of enter, highlights the whole text because it's wrong, right? And that's one thing I want to do. What about not just doing that, but changing the border of my age text field to something else? Is it possible? Let's see. This dot underscore age text field dot. And so type border. Set border. Set border. There we go. Set border. And then it's looking for a border, right? Well, it's of type border. So it means I got to define a border, which I could probably do something like this. New anonymous border, right? Border, right? And let's see if I go control space for kind of some conditions. Anonymous border, anonymous center type. I create a new border. A new border object, and I gotta use borders. Look at my stuff here. Let's go to my Java tutorial here. We're sorry, but the page request is not found. Okay, I don't want that. So what kind of border, if I want to make a new border, how do I do it? Let's just do it first like this. I'll say, just right on top of here, which is really messy. I'll go something like this, border. I'll say my border is equal to new border. And then kind of open that up, right? And then it kind of says, well, I don't really know what border is, Tom, right? Because if I go border, it says import border as a swing. So I need to do that first, right? It's my quick fix. And now I know that there's an issue because now it's going to give me all the different kinds of border properties. So I'm going to go border, open up my thing, and then kind of go control space. And it still doesn't really do it. Because that's what it's looking for. My set border in here, it's looking for instantiate a new border. Let's take a look. So if I go to set border of type border, right? Look at this. So set border, border. That's what it's looking for. To set in it's a J component type. If I look at see also border, yay. That's kind of hard to see here. I'm going to scroll up. So it's a Java swing border. How do I do that? And if I look up here for what I added in my import, right? I added in a lightweight component. What's the difference between heavyweight and lightweight? Anything in JAVAX that says JAVAX in front of it, pretty much is a lightweight component. If it's up here with AW2 in front of it, most likely heavyweight component. All right. All right. So we added in a border, which is this one, border, empty border. And then there's this border swing class that's of type border. I wanna explore this thing. Let's look at the API documentation for that. I'm just gonna say new window, and I'm gonna say swing border, right? Not border layout, but just border. So I go to how to use borders, and then I want to put a border around here. As an example, here's the border demo example. Create a custom border, the border API. That's probably what I want, right? But it gives me some examples down here if I go down here. Simple borders. Set border to black line. And here's black line is border factory, create line border. Color black. Yeah. Yeah, that's the one I want right here. This one. But instead of like color black, I want a red border, right? So kind of, so it's a, instead of black line, it's a red line. So I'm gonna take this whole line here. I'm being real lazy. And I'll copy, so that's not what I wanted. The other way I did it before, say border black line. I gotta do these things too. Maybe I gotta take this whole thing. Hold on a second. Copy this. Go back to my text, right? And I need this for a second, but I need to go back down here, right? Where I do this kind of stuff, where I have this new border. So let's just copy this stuff in here and paste. Yeah. Okay, so I don't need black line. I don't need all this other stuff. Let's call this thing red line, right? Red line. And my red line is equal to border factory, create line border, color red. Let's kind of fix this thing. So color red. And I got a couple problems. It doesn't know border factory, so I'm going to add that as an import. It doesn't know color, so I'm going to add that as an import. And now I'm going to do this over here. I'm going to say go this age text value dot set border, and I'm going to put in red line, which is a type of border. That should, satisfy the requirements. Okay, cool, but wait a minute. I mean, I'm kind of making this border red line, and I'm using this border factory, calling it red line. Can't I just put this whole thing in here like this border factory? I'm not making the new keyword, right? Because look, I'm just going to take this whole thing, and instead of putting in this variable, cut it, go to in here, paste. Would that be sufficient? Let's see if it. Oh yeah, the semicolon. How come it didn't work? I mean, it's not a border. Even though this is what it converts to, right? I'm not setting it as a border. See, red line is a border, and that's why I use my set factory to do it. But this won't work directly in there. There's another way of doing it, but not that way. All right, so this is my little border I've created. Now this little thing here, this border red line, this is nice because I've done it one time. But if I want to do it over and over again, this is definitely not the way to do it. Okay, so if there's a problem, set the border to the red line. How about if it's not a problem? I got to set the border back, right? Because it's always going to stay this way forever, right? Let's try this out. So I'm going to run it. I make a mistake, like I put a J, and then all of a sudden, bam, red border. Looks nice though, huh? Good validation control, right, that I want to put in there. But now when I set a regular one like 1, and I put like a real value in there, well, it highlights it. What if I put like 1 and enter? Still keeps the red border forever, right? So that's why I don't want that. I want to be able to clear my red border, or clear it back to black, right? So this is where my border red line and my red line border factory create line border red. These two things, what I want to do is take this and create this somewhere at the top of my class. Cut, go up here to the top, and define these things up here at the top of my class for seconds. Just try this out. This is cool. My border red line border, right, is definitely a private, and it's going to be red line with an underscore. And I also want to include other things in here as well. It says border example window red line. It's going to be an error. But that's one thing I want to put in there, so semicolon, right? I also want to put in other values in here, not just the red line border, but other things like red line and black line. So let's do a comma underscore black line, right? There we go, black line. And I want to get rid of this. So I want to kind of copy this out, and then that's gone. And that what I've just taken is my black line, and I want to kind of set up my borders in its own method, right? Because I think that might be something I want to do in my initialize function, or after my initialize function, I want to set up my borders, right? Or maybe before I set up my UI components, I want to set up my borders, something like that, right? So let's make another method called, instead of like, here's my add hello label, and before my add hello label, I'll make another method here called set borders, so, or set up borders, so void underscore set up borders, right? And then inside there, I want to use those, this dot underscore redline as a border factory that's the color red, and I want to do the same thing with black, which is black line, right? Black line. Black line with the border factory black. And then once I've got that going on, where I've got my black line and my red line defined, I'm going to also call my set, before my UI components in my constructor, I'm going to say this dot underscore setup borders in my constructor. Now that I've got that, when I go down to here, I'm going to call this dot underscore red line when there's a mistake, right? And when I go back up here, I'm going to do the same thing to the border. I'm going to say for sure this dot underscore hello label, or sorry, age label, is that? Yeah. Age text field, age text field dot set border to this dot underscore black line. So I'm going to change it back. So whenever I go back, I change the border value back to black, baby. And then I go back down here, and then we're going to go to red line. So red line and black line. And then what I do is if I run this and I've done no errors, no mistakes, I got my name, I type my name. And then when I go here for my age, I got to make a number, and press enter, red line. And when I type the right number, like 1, it goes back to black. That's a problem, because look, my border isn't black, right? So what is this border anyway? And this is a flat freaking border, eh? Like, huh? The border is null?
Yeah.
All right, I can do that too. All right, let's just do this. So I'll put border null. You're smarty. I like that's why I call her smarty all the time, because she's smart. She's smart. So Tom, and then I go blah, blah, blah. And then red, and then I go back to 1, and then back. Right, so that's pretty good. So that's kind of a good effect. It's good feedback to the user that I'm getting border back and forth. Let's take a quick break, then I'm going to get back to some other more advanced controls. No, he's right. Smarty. Anyway, this is pretty cool. And I think if you look at the border style, if you want to find out what the border style is, that's a very good observation, Tim. If I go back to design, and sometimes what I do is if I click on this, and if you want to look at some bounds and different objects here, you see that it has background, the background colors, the drop mode, enable, disable, font, and there's not every object is here. Take a look at that. Show events. I can go to definition. I can show advanced properties. I can restore default values. Let's go to show advanced properties. And then if you notice here, if I go down here, I can see that the border is aqua text field border. That's the one we want to use. Aqua text field border, baby. Right? So this, I can also change the border type to whatever. These are defaulted values, right? That I could choose. Bevel border, compound border, blah, blah. These are the other ones. But my default border is this aqua text field border. I wonder if I just put in default, if that would work. Probably not. So let's check that out and see if it works. Maybe it would work. But we'll do that on the break. So let's pause now. I think I need a break too. And then I'll upload it to GitHub, and we'll stop debugging all this crazy stuff, because I've got a couple of these windows open because I forgot to keep closing down. And we'll just pause and we'll come back.